Good evening, everybody. It is 7 o'clock and we'd like to get the meeting started. I invite everybody to take their seats. If all of the LPC members could come to the table and take their seats, that'd be terrific. Thank you all for coming. I see a lot of very familiar faces. My name is Eric Wood. I'm with HKS. We're the architectural firm that has been working with the town to come forward with a way to reposition downtown Hicksville so that it would be able to enjoy an economic prosperity that everybody is hoping for. In the past, we have gone through a series of, it'd be better if I turn this thing on, right? I'm a little bit technologically impaired at the moment. That's So this is the local planning committee, meeting number 5. We've been at this for a little bit of time now since we started in September. The first meeting of the local planning committee happened in October, the very end of October. Halloween, if I remember rightly. So a few faces in the audience were there. Most of the LPC members, of course, were there. So tonight what we're going to look at is giving the LPC members a quick overview of what has happened to date. Most of you have been keeping pace with all the information that we've been delivering at the meetings. We're also going to have Dave Ashton of the New York State Department of State talk to us briefly about the DRI funding process, which is the whole purpose of this planning process. As people are well aware, the state had granted to Hicksville the sum total of $10 million, 9.7 of which will go towards the first set of projects that the town would like to see started here. Then we'll ask Greg Carmen, the co-chair, to host the discussion with the LPC members about the projects that we were proposing out of the larger vision of the set of projects that might be possible here, and to, at the end, build consensus as to those that the town, vis-a-vis the local planning committee, would like to advance for DRI funding consideration. There are a couple of next steps, and then at the very end, we'll invite the public who are gladly observing the proceedings here to have some commentary. So the overall process has been one where you guys have actually started talking about planning for downtown as far back as 2001. More recently, 2010, there had been a various different set of plans that have been put forward. We have, as HKS, have the benefit of reviewing those plans and advancing them forward. So where we are right now is what you see in the red circle. The DRI award happened in August. The assembly of the project team happened in September. We're targeting getting our strategic investment plan completed at the end of March. So where we are right now is at the February 15th date that you see here on the chart. We're just at the point where we have ideas. We're trying to assemble all the data in a fashion so that the LPC members will be able to weight and balance not only the investments that would be necessary, but the public benefits that would arrive from those investments. So the overall vision was, or I should say the overall challenge was, in essence, having looked at and heard people talk about what in Hicksville is the big sort of sticking point to how people are enjoying downtown, is effectively decongesting the center. That was our biggest takeaway from all of our conversations. So we arrived at a vision plan that we thought really does address not only that issue, but the one about how to reposition the downtown so that you're not simply looking and conceiving of it as being Broadway, but it has an ability to be seated in other places. Sure. I was hopeful. This is a new machine. The lights, I think, are as low as they will be able to get. This is an LED light.
This chair is above the wall.
Is it? Yeah, this machine was supposed to have a brighter light because it's an LED light. The last machine we were using, the bulb was going on the fritz, and it's about 5 years old, and the technology isn't necessarily as sharp as this one. This one is even smaller. But just to continue, the idea here was to look at what the major move would be to bring downtown into a better condition. Mostly people have recognized that the commuter station and its attendant parking dominates the center of town, and that really needed to be addressed. The way that we chose to address it was to suggest that there is an open space system, a series of them, that would enable the downtown to actually start to be a place that people would want to come and to actually spend some time. And this is broken out into a couple of different pieces, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But the idea is that this particular public open space system would be the thing that can organize and spur investment in private sector activities. The commercial enterprises that we would envision along a remade West Barclay Street, the area just south in the Nelson Avenue and Herzog Place district, as well as the things that are lining Broadway. So Ryan, do you have a different one? So if you could just pause for a moment while we read that up.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Because
if someone could sing and entertain the crowd, that would be very helpful. I cannot.
You'll probably get it on That's what I said. That's when I said, I'm like, I always get my calls. Oh, I know. Of course they do. I mean, nobody else says them. I don't know no, nobody does. That's just I think that's what it is. Because they don't know where they got it from, and they blame it for their own. I had my speech here.
So guys, we're back.
Feel better.
Oh, you can't see?
No, back up, back up.
Is that better, Paul? All right. It doesn't look brighter to me. So hopefully that was entertaining to you as we were trying to get our technology together. So let me just get back to the idea of what the vision plan has been. We were looking effectively at the core of town and saying that the open space that's there is underbuilt and underwhelming. And what we were trying to do was create a place that people want to actually come to and spend some time. So the green stuff that you see there is what we're talking about as a new open space system that currently expands greatly what you have in JFK Park to create a new system that will embrace not only the volume of commuters that are coming in and out of the station, but hopefully will be a place that residents would want to come to as well. And we believe from our past experiences in other places in other downtowns across the country that once investment in the open space occurs, you begin to increase the value or the perceived value of the adjacent properties. And it's mostly because the foot traffic that comes through Hicksville right now, that purchasing power is not captured. And once people realize that the value of the adjacent properties of the people flowing through this green space will only allow for greater opportunities, this is how we're going to leverage the investment that Hicksville would make today into something into the future that's much more prosperous. Thank you, Ryan. So part of what we were envisioning was that we would remake Barclay Street as a focus for mixed-use activity. We would also do the same thing for the area around Nelson Herzog Place, effectively keeping the lower height level that everybody has been interested in having and creating things that are in a smaller scale, which is in direct counterpoint to the wideness of Broadway and the inability to cross safely in order to sort of patronize the stores there. We would like to see some activities occur on Broadway so that we are increasing its walkability, but given the width of Broadway, which is not going to decrease, that it is still going to be challenging, but there are measures that could be put into place that helps mitigate that. So we're thinking that you start at this area in the yellow circle, which is what we're dubbing the Station Plaza, a small open space that would sort of be directly adjacent to the lobby of the station and would accommodate the flow of people coming in and out. And once you start there, it's easy to progress and end up at an expanded JFK Park We think all of that kind of thing starts to generate interest and activity and would eventually renew downtown in general. So that's the big picture. What I'd like to do is invite Dave Ashton to come up and talk about how the DRI funding process works and what we're going to be looking at as primary requirements or criteria in order to look at the various different projects that we will want to get funded through this program. David?
Good evening, everyone. As Eric said, I'm Dave Ashton from the Department of State. The Department of State administers the DRI program throughout the state in all the 10 regions, and we do that in partnership with our sister agencies, Housing and Community Renewal, and also Empire State Development Program. So that's just a little background. As you all know, this process has been going on for several months. It's a very quick process. In many ways, the process is designed to identify projects which get funded under the balance of the money, the $9.7 million that still exists, to be applied and invested in the community to catalyze future both public and private investment in addition to what the DRI can fund to get things started. So I just want to talk a little bit about sort of how that process is going to work, and then wrap up my little piece with sort of a timeline of how this winds down. So coming into the process, the town submitted an application and they identified a series of projects. We got HKS on board, and they, I think, have done a really terrific job at coming up with some potential avenues to re-envision the downtown, and flowing from that has come a series of public projects that could be invested in. Similarly, there was a call for private projects as part of this process, and we got a number of projects that were proposed from the private sector. So that basket of projects sort of includes those three sources and maybe some others, but those are the three primary sources. So as the committee meets tonight, what we're looking to do is we have this sort of larger basket of projects, and a lot of these public projects are actually quite expensive. So there's a basket that's much bigger than $9.7 million. But what we're looking to do, we're looking to narrow that down so that there's a smaller basket that's included in the what we call the strategic investment plan, which is sort of the final report that comes out of this this process. So what we recommend is that the committee narrow the slate down to sort of 12 to 15. It could be a little bit more here because the private sector projects are so expensive. 12 to 15 million for inclusion in the report, and those are projects that the committee is recommending to the state for funding. So the state will take the recommended projects, we'll vet them, and we will award $9.7 million worth of projects back to the town. And that'll happen probably in the early spring. I should be moving this along, my apologies. Yeah, okay. So when we get the projects in at the end of March in the strategic investment plan, the state will go about evaluating those projects, and these are some of the criteria that we would use. When we talk about state and local goals, we're really looking at how do the projects match up with the goals that this process articulated for Hicksville. So there were goals and strategies and objectives that were part of this process, and those will be articulated in the plan that's put out. So that's the goals. The state goals are really the goals that the state puts out for DRI program itself, and those really led to the selection of this downtown.
What is DRI?
Downtown Revitalization Initiative. Second is readiness. Is the project ready to go? This is meant to be sort of projects that are ready to go, quick hits, get things done. We're not looking for projects that can't happen for one reason or another for 5 years or something along those lines. We're looking for catalytic projects and projects that have additional co-benefits, so things that don't just benefit one user, but have a broader impact and can make other things happen. And then, of course, cost effectiveness. We're looking to get as much bang for the state buck as we can. Once the projects are awarded, they will be administered, they'll be granted to the sponsors. So different projects that have been developed have different sponsors. Obviously, private sector projects would be sponsored by those private sector entities. whether they be organizations or developers or landowners. For private sector, a lot of those are probably the town, but depending on what they are, they could be a county or another public entity. Once they're awarded, they'll be administered by the appropriate state agency. And speaking from DRI 1, this is the second year that we've done DRI. Most of those projects will get administered by staff of the Department of State, Empire State Development, and Housing and Community Renewal, the three agencies that are primarily involved with DRI. So as for the timeline, the whole process wraps up on March 30th. That's when the strategic investment plan gets submitted to the state. Early summer is when the state will announce the projects that have been awarded in each of the 10 DRIs. Sometimes that happens over a few weeks. Sometimes it happens all at once. We'll see what happens this year, but you can sort of count on that being in the early summer timeframe. And then in the winter of 2019, the awarded projects would go to contract with the state and would start to be implemented. The time in between there, if you're wondering, that's when we do our sort of all the things that have to be done within the state to prepare to distribute money and get those projects started, contracting, those sorts of things. So from the committee, are there any questions before you get talking about individual projects? Yes?
Only because there are some people in here who are new. Can you just explain how the number went from 10 million to 9.7 million?
Oh, of course, sure. So there's 10 million that's awarded to each community, and then 300,000 of that funds the planning process that we're all a part of today. And I would just say, as an aside, I'm very pleasantly surprised at the work that's been done by HKS, not because I wasn't expecting great work from HKS, but this process really isn't designed to do a full sort of urban design exercise. And they really came out and they observed what was here, and I think they had some very, very smart, interesting ideas for how to revitalize the downtown in terms of public infrastructure. So I really commend their effort, and I commend their committee for pushing them to get some concepts that the committee and hopefully the community is very, very receptive to. So I think it's all very exciting. Okay, I'll turn it over to you.
My name is Greg Carmen. I'm the Deputy Supervisor for the Town of Oyster Bay. I'm joined here by Councilwoman Rebecca Alessia, Councilman McAdam, and our legislator Rose Walker, members of our committee here, along with the rest of the group here. I want to just, my task here on behalf of the town is to follow up here, and I'm going to run this through the end up into the public comment session, is just to review the different projects that had been entertained, and our goal here tonight is to come up with a consensus on the part of the committee over here, which projects we're going to recommend to the state for consideration. We don't get to pick the projects. For those of you who may be here for the first time tonight, our challenge here tonight is to identify projects that we think that would be a good starting point for the downtown area here, and make a recommendation to the state to fund a certain set of those. And our parameters here are limited by money. And we have $9.6 million, $9.7 million to start the process and see where it's going to take us. So let's see. Am I going the wrong way? Because somebody wore off the button already. Okay. So we're going to review the proposed projects, assess the opportunities, evaluate the investment, and advance the projects with DRI funding. So some of the proposed projects here was the new, see how Eric was doing this. We had the Long Island Railroad Station Entry Drive, the new Station Plaza, Festival Plaza. I don't have to read it all, you guys can read it too. You can see these are the different proposed projects that the town felt should be advanced here as part of our recommendations this evening. These are some of the other projects that have been entertained over here and may be opportunities for us at a future date. That would be the New Bridge Complex, New Bridge Complete Street, Broadway, the Underline, and the parking garages. Eric mentioned the Memorial Park expansion, the JFK Memorial Park expansion. We see that happening a little bit further down the road. But reaching out there and seeing that as an opportunity for some green space. The other future projects here are Herzog, the signage program, which we might be able to do with some grant money. The High Line was something that Rebecca Alessia had championed early on, but we see it maybe as something that ties everything together at a later date. And the downtown walking path. Long Island Railroad Entry Drive is a $4.3 million project. This is at the entrance to the train station here, and is supposed to be able to, promote the easing of congestion with the drop-offs of the riders at the railroad station, and something that would enhance pedestrian safety. We have the new Station Plaza at $3 million. Again, to ease commuter flow. One of the, I'm not sure I'm just going to add, Jim.
You're going to want to, at this point in time,
Project by project?
Project by project.
Okay.
So we'll start the entry drive and get everybody's thoughts on that, and we'll go.
Okay. We're going to do, this is actually a committee meeting. That's okay, we're going to get some, what I was just, got some direction to do. We're going to focus on each of the different projects that we input from our committee up here right now. So the entry drive project is budgeted at $4.3 million. Jim, was this the one that had the...
With the canopy.
The canopy? Just the canopy?
Click back one slide.
Click
Back one slide.
0317.
Up one now. There you go.
This one?
This one.
Okay.
This is the proposal that's going to coordinate the new way into the station. It's going to create the entry drive off of West John and down what is now Wyckoff Street, relocate the Eagle to the middle. And in the proposal, original has this to be a canopy, so when you're dropping people off, this is supposedly you're going to come in and be able to drop off and return back out. It'll have a covered canopy for bad weather. And this will be the main coming in and dropping off. People that are going to be parking in the new parking garages will be coming down and then going back one of the back alleyways to come to the back of the garages.
We estimated the cost of the canopy $1 million.
About $1 million.
So depending on what we do juggling money, it may be something we could forego in order to get an extra project off the ground, maybe use the money at a later date. But does anybody on the committee have any comments on this slide?
How much money would it take for everybody
I'm not sure, Ryan, but maybe you probably have some extra ones out there if you're the guy who seems to have all the tools ready to go. Anybody have any comments on, suggestions on it? Rebecca?
I'll start the ball rolling. First of all, conceptual drawings are amazing. I have Cecily's behind, so I can't see them, but I'm such a fan of your work. It's lovely to see. But I'm looking at this slide and I'm looking at the next slide and I'm adding them together and it's like $7 million, like 7/10 of the money, and it seems like it's like almost all of it is being invested just in the train station. And I know that we've heard over and over again. I'm not grandstanding. I'm just but I know we've heard over and over again from people that pedestrian safety and the traffic are the two main concerns. And I know that the experts are saying the only way to fix that is the train station. But I just feel like it's so much money to sink into this one piece, and if somebody's not a commuter, will it really benefit them?
I think you have to look at it when you go, you can't look at the one individual slide, you have to look at the 3 slides together. When you piece together the entry drive, Station Plaza, and Festival Plaza, it's a connection, and what the planners are trying to do is bring a connection from the train station all the way over to Broadway. By doing that, it will increase pedestrian safety. Because right now people are walking haphazardly underneath. So it's also going to create a new centerpiece for the downtown. Festival Plaza will allow us to have food trucks, it'll allow us to have farmers market. It's going to be a gathering space. So anyone that will be moving into some of the future housing that's going to be coming online, they'll have a place to go. It'll be Hicksville Central Park. So it's, yeah, you'll have outdoor music, you can have festivals in the summer. It's really a gathering space as much as it is.
It's great 6 months out of the year. It's 6 months out of the year, 5 months out of the year.
Oh, yeah?
We gotta look for something that's getting more bang for the $10 million, $9.7 million. So let's continue.
Anybody else have any comments? Ryan Lau?
Yeah, there's different things that you can do the other 6 months. There's no reason you can't have a skating rink and you have a vendor contract in town and you bring in a great central all of a sudden a skating rink. There's creative uses that you can make that.
You can't hear him. You can't hear people.
All right. Get the mic for the next one. But maybe what we should do here is just get through each of the different, projects and have an opportunity then to look at them as a whole. So I'm going to move on to the next slide.
You can take the mic off too, that's the one handed around. I think it'll reach to the table. You want it, that's around the one.
So Jim, I don't know if you want to make comments on this one.
Okay, Station Plaza is an offshoot of the entry drive, which is part of, once again, the connection all the way through. It's all about the flow and making this really a better place. It's not just for the commuters, it's really a gathering place that's for everybody.
Is this on a different, are we supposed to look at a different spot on this picture?
It's over here. No, it's over here. This is what we're looking at now. Entry Drive is here. Station Plaza is here. It's just like a widened park, a place, a gathering place. So when you see the whole slide together of the all three, as we're moving along, you're going to see that we're going to make a pathway all the way from here with the Entry Drive into Station Plaza. It's going to carry down Festival Plaza, which will carry all the way down to Broadway. So it's one big contiguous open green space, but it's been broken down into 3 different parcels because based on the funding, whichever one we can see.
So is that where the parking lot is right now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Where that Green Street is that where the parking lot is?
Yes, but we're trying to keep conversations to the committee right now, and we'll have comment to the public at the end.
Anybody on the committee have any comments on this one?
I'm going to hold my comment just to the next
Other way. Okay, this is now is Festival Plaza, which may make a little bit more sense now as you see it. The entry drive is all the way at the top. You can see the green that's going north-south. It connects to Station Plaza, which is next to it, and Festival Plaza now runs the length and could eventually connect into JFK Park. And that's the thought. Then when JFK Park expands, you'll have this one giant green open space. So anyone in the commuters that are trying to get across to the parking lots over by Peppercorns will now, instead of just walking underneath the cement and the High Line, have a nice, beautiful place. Now, as West Barclay Street also develops, when we look to see, you'll see later on the parking garages, plans are to have them wrapped in retail and housing. This would give all of West Barclay Street, which is right here at the commuters, a park place. So when we're looking to rebuild West Barclay Street into a downtown, this will be an open space area for them as well. So it's not just for the commuters, it's for anyone that's going to be going to the restaurants, the bars at West Barclay, or anyone that's living in the housing that's right there. So it's dual purpose. It's dual purpose.
Right. Jim, that white box up there, that's the
white box
parking garage?
that would be the FedEx building, I believe. That's the, to everyone that knows it now, that would be the FedEx building.
One of the things I'd just like to clarify for the LPC members is that the work that you see here is pretty much looking at a high level of quality. And the idea is that there is a basket of money that the state, through the DRI process, is willing to grant but the overall cost of this is in excess of that. So if you look at what the idea is here and the total amount of money, there's going to need to be contributions from other sources. The DRI program is not going to complete everything. So part of what the strategy here amongst this group needs to start happening is, how do we piece all the different pots of money that we have access to in order to jumpstart this process? And Rebecca, to your point, it may not be the thing that seems to almost immediately address the concerns of residents, but certainly the thing about the conflict that has been announced and sort of underscored continually about the commuters and the pedestrians that are trying to get across from the vehicles, that is the core of what the challenge is. And so once you resolve that, a lot of other things start to flow a bit more easily. So you don't have to start where we've chosen to start. As planners, we think that's the most appropriate place. You can start festival, you can start a different part of the entire plan. But I think in terms of how things might be sequenced so that they build on itself, what we proposed, I think, is a reasonable way to do it. Does that help the members understand? Okay. You're welcome.
Phil? Where is the parking garages that the MTA is going to build, and how is this integrated into that? Because one of the proposals I thought it was that the flow of traffic would go behind the parking garages towards the post office and out that way.
The parking garages are going to be further north. If you're looking here, they're further up the ceiling, so they're on this side of it.
The current lot is just west of
just west, right?
West of the
exactly. They would be just west of Station Entry Drive.
There's no, you're not going to get any flow around the back of it?
There will be a flow. There's alleyways behind the back of it. I think you'll see that in future slides.
Okay, so this will segue in, Eric's comments are going to segue into the next one here. And we see that we're looking at $6 million for the West Barclay portion of this project. And that's viewed as a public-private partnership. That's not, we're not looking to allocate $6 million of the funds for this. You can see it calls for a redesign of the street, connecting Broadway, again, increased walkability, and promoting mixed use. Any input from members of the committee here for this?
I'll just, if I can point for a second. Well, these are the parking garages here. That would be back along here. So you can come down Station Drive, the roads here and here in between the parking garages, and the access is along an alleyway here and over in the back. But if you look at the grand scheme of things, that's why Entry Drive then connects to Station Plaza, which connects to Festival Plaza. So it's not just for the commuters going there, it's for this whole downtown that's going to be coming in here, and for the activities. You know, the fact that we don't have a waterfront, we don't have anything, this is going to be the space or something that will be the centerpiece of downtown. You have to actually almost create a destination.
Phil?
Is the $6 million just was highlighted in the color, or does it also include the ring road?
The $6 million of that project is basically what's in the color. That's going to be a lot of that. It's going to be done with private investment dollars in the MTA.
The question is just on funding. I know we only have 9.7 right? Really decide on what projects that we should recommend. I would like to see the breakout, whether the town is putting up, it's looking for $3 million, massive counting, they put any money into it, things like that, so you can really decide on the project. Now, you just said the $6 million here is going to be private investments. So is all $6 million going to be private investments, or we have to fund like $1 million now? I was thinking we need a breakdown.
So Paul, on your sheet that you have in front of you is actually the first page. Is a breakout of the projects and what their estimated costs are to get them off the ground. And there's 7 of them. Some of these we're going to use the seed money for. Others are identified as not using grant money, but being funded with private partnerships, or having the MTA pay for a portion of them, or the state pay for a portion of them.
Right.
These shows a split, only others show the full cost being on DRI.
Right, basically, you're looking at maybe an incubator, if you would, with the investment that'll grow afterwards.
Correct. The money here is to get each of these projects off the ground. So maybe Jim?
Right. The thought process would be that if we went with some of the, so they're going to come in and want to be able to put into it. Then we talked, there was conversations about partnering with the MTA on the parking garages in other towns. In Westchester, they've partnered with the MTA parking garage, and they ran an RFP out to a developer and included the parking garages and the development around it. So that's a lot of option. The $6 million here would have been some of our investment, road work, sidewalks, lighting, things like that. We're looking at the concept that Barclay Street can probably develop itself if we put our infrastructure and made the other things. A developer is not going to come in and really work on Festival Plaza and Station Plaza, but if we created that path and showed them what they can build around and the value that's what it's going to be, then they're all going to want to be here. So it's actually, like you said, we're planting the seed, and they're going to reap the benefits of it. But as a result, we're going to tell them, you pay for the road, you pay for the sidewalks, and you pay for the lighting. Okay. Right? So we're creating, this is the spot you want to be, you pick up the tab, kind of thing.
Anybody else have any questions, comments? Quiet group tonight. Brian?
No, I personally, I think this is one of the most integral parts of the whole project. I mean, for me, I'm 31. I've said to Goethel since the first time I spoke to the council forever ago that my friends don't want to move here and they would want to move to that. We got to seed the town with newer blood, with younger money, with different business opportunities, developers coming into the place. A place for us to be like, oh, come to Hicksville. Well, why? Would help be why. These parks would be why. This is going to decongest. Parking garages are going to help. It's going to have a net gain of nearly 1,000 spaces, you guys said, right? Over the course of all the garages eventually, right? Not right away, but this is going to be totally baller. I mean, that's what this is amazing. I'm proud of this if this were to happen. As opposed to being like, oh yeah, no, I was born in Huntington, but moved to Hicksville. Like, stop saying born in Huntington Park.
Thank you. Anybody else? Come on, Rebecca.
I like Ryan.
All right.
Great, if I can just-
Sure, Dave.
So, again, this is the outside looking in, if you will.
Hey, Dave.
This is from the outside looking in, but in terms of my own experience in Greenport, we decided, when you're tackling a problem as big as this, the challenge is to figure out what's the one thing you can do that you can manage, actually accomplish, that would change the game. And in Greenport, we basically did what this plan proposes to do with respect to public space. Before we built the park, for those of you that are familiar with the village, before we built the park in the center of downtown, there was no place for a family to go downtown and have a picnic. There was no place for a mother to take a child in a stroller. There was no place to just sit and relax in a comfortable way. And that was the need that we thought we would fill with the park. And it worked. And I think the same thing will happen here. Even before we put a shovel in the ground, once people became convinced that we were actually going to do this, investment followed. Restaurants started to open. We had a hotel that was built immediately next to the park before the park was built. So this is where does a mother go right now with a child to stroll in a stroller? Where do you go? So this I think this would fill a really glaring, important public need that would not only serve the local community, but would also inspire private investment.
Thanks, Dave. Anybody else have any? Sure, Paul.
I really do like the majority of these projects by really having a concept on where the funding's coming from. I worked in the federal government. I worked in the Federal Construction Grants Program. I was a manager. We awarded hundreds of millions of dollars in projects. But we also know when we awarded the project, 75% of the cost was coming by the federal government, 15% was coming from the state, and 10% from the local government. When I see this, I see $3 million. This means all of it, like $3 million for the new station plaza. You're saying that's all going to come out of DRI. And then in the backup, it says the town's going to supply additional funding. Is $3 million the total project cost? If it is, maybe $2.5 million comes out of the DRI and $0.5 million from the town. Things like that. I would like to see that in the backup before I make a decision on what project to vote on.
Eric, you want to help us on that?
Sure. Right now, this is at a conceptual level, looking at particular projects that are eligible for DRI funding.
Yeah.
Negotiating which pieces or percentages can be provided from different parts of, or different buckets of money from the state or from the county or even from private sources has not yet been had. We have a notion of what things could do, but right now, because of the DRI process, as David outlined, we're looking at the things that this committee would pretty much like to move forward for their consideration. There are all different kinds of ways I think we can skim this cat in order to meet that $9.7 million allocation of the grant. As I mentioned, the quality level that we were envisioning is on the upper scale of things because we do think that, number one, Hicksville deserves it, but number two, that if you start with the better quality, that will just encourage other investments of like quality to happen. And that's what we would like to see happen here in Hicksville. The idea of being able to value engineer is still out there. There are things that we can pull out. We do have a cost estimate, which I'm very happy to walk through with people on this committee so that we can be a little bit more comfortable about what pieces of the DRR funding we're wishing to endorse for any particular project and which pieces we want to not have in there. But this is the start of that conversation. So thank you, Paul.
Thank you. So the next slide here is the 99 Hicksville Station Plaza, which is looking to use $1.5 million of the funding.
This is one of the, that came out of the requests from the private sector. And this is the one that we're advancing because it was the most ready. It had all the criteria that was required. They had site control. They were able to provide financing, and they're leveraging the investment with their own dollars. So it's a $40 to $45 million project. They're requesting $1.5 million. So percentage-wise, they have a lot of stake in the game. This is going to be for those that are familiar with it. It's on the Nelson Avenue. It's at the bend of the Nelson Avenue, which was the second downtown. We were looking at West Barkley and Nelson. This is the corner piece. This is right at the bend, and this is what's going to start Nelson Avenue redevelopment.
Rebecca?
I'm just wondering, so it's a private project, and I think this is great. I thought it was great when it was brought up in the first place. But if we give the $1.5 million to the private developer, whomever he or she may be, what is our guarantee that the project gets done? What if the money is given over and the project doesn't get done?
The state will be taking care of that. They're doing all the vetting process for us. They'll have to provide us all the financials and all of the pro forma that it's going to get done.
Do we have a guarantee on the money?
On the money from?
If it could come back to the community, if it doesn't get used.
Yeah, yes, the money would be for that project, and if for some reason that project doesn't happen, then the money would sort of essentially come back into the process. So that's one of the reasons why we want to see more than $9.7 million of funding, project funding
So it can
recommended in the plan.
So
if something drops out, there's other things that can be picked up.
Great.
Tony?
I'm reading the back of this, contingent on us changing our zoning.
No, it's contingent on, they're waiting before we build for us to implement the new zoning code.
Okay.
Yep. They're gonna fall within the new zoning code. Technically, right now, they could build in the central business district, and they're waiting for us. They wanna work with us and build with what we want in the new zoning code.
Okay, thank
So
you.
actually, they're working with us and helping us.
Lionel?
With what they're showing us, is that exactly what they're gonna put up, or can that change throughout the process?
It's conceptual, it's concept.
Conceptual, yeah, it's 90%, I think, of what we're looking at.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Phil?
Yeah, I really like this project. I think it addresses a lot of the things that the original Downtown Revitalization Committee's been looking at for years. One is to improve the aesthetics of the downtown. This is probably one of the ugliest properties in the downtown. It looks like a minefield right now. I'm pretty sure this is the $13 parking lot, right? $12. It would provide the apartments that we all said over the years that's needed, next generation, and downsizing for seniors kind of property, and restore some of the property to the tax rolls to help reduce the impact on our overall taxes. So I like this particular one. I'm not sure how we decided on the 1.5 million. Is that, I guess my question would be, is that connected to anything particular? Is it a percent, or how is that determined? Because I would suggest maybe we use a lower number.
The committee can discuss anything. That's a 40-to-1 return on your investment dollar, which is pretty good in, as you'll see throughout the DRI, that's a pretty substantial number. The request is low based on the amount of investment.
So 1 million.
Well, if I said 40 to 45 million. And this is New York, so that could be 50 million.
Anybody else have any input on this one? You can't help yourself, Ryan, huh?
Just have one question. They're putting up for almost what, $40 million, but looking for 1.5. Seems odd. Why 1.5 if they can afford $40 million? I'm just trying to understand. I'm trying to understand the certain relationship between 1.5 and 40 million.
Because they probably would want 10%, they wanted $4 million, and I told them that $4 million would never apply.
Can you have the mic so we can hear it back here, please?
The developers would have been looking for more. In some programs, they'd want 10%. But they realized that it's a $9 million grant, or a $10 million grant, 9.7 million, and that it has to go somewhere else. And they realize that they will benefit by the money going somewhere else as well. So it's helping us, and it's helping them as well. They'll be putting money back into the community that will then just help the other developments, which will then in turn help themselves. So the answer is they didn't want to be greedy and ask for $9 million.
Okay.
What if that project moving forward, what if they like got to a point that didn't really do a $40 million project? What if they only did a partial? Then
I think we're deferring to the state on that one again. The state's managing and overseeing.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure how to answer that, other than when the committee sort of settles on a slate of projects to include in the plan, HKS will work on the various projects, including this one, to sort of further flesh out what the definition of that project is. In this case, looking at a pro forma, looking at additional information about the project designs, that type of thing. And then, if it was awarded funding, the state would grant the funds under the auspices of what we call project profile, how that sort of articulates the project. So if it wasn't coming together really in the same way, if it didn't meet the spirit of the way it was conceived, then I suppose it would come back for some evaluation by the state as to whether it was still meritorious of the funds.
Right. They have the financing in place for that amount of a project, and the only thing that's stopping it from being a bigger project is our zoning that has kept it scaled down. So they could do a $50 million project there, but based on the square footage and the zoning and the height restrictions that we put on it,
and the amount of parking required, that's where we came to the $40 million, based on the number of units that can fit on that site. So obviously they would prefer a $50 or $60 million project, but the site won't hold it.
Jim made a comment a couple minutes ago. Just for those of you who, I'll just make sure we're clear on it for those of you who are in the audience. These projects that we picked, we have a long list of projects, but not all of these projects are going to be considered because they weren't, what was the term you used, Jim?
They didn't have site control.
Site control. And site control means the investors own the property, or the investors have the right to develop the property. And there's something that Eric had talked about earlier. If they weren't ready to go and hit the ground running because they controlled the site, those projects are not being included here for consideration tonight.
Right, we're looking at an 18 to 24 month total closeout of these projects. So the timetable is moving quickly. So for anyone that is still trying to put together parcels, it just wasn't going to happen.
But it could happen in the future.
Absolutely. Just they wouldn't be able to receive the grant
yes.
money. Right. We had several people that were interested in the grant money, but the progress is that we're moving faster.
Okay, understood.
And they're still interested.
So I'll ask Jim to just give us an explanation on this one. This is one of the projects we're considering. It's property owned by a different entity right now, but they're not going to develop this property. They control another property.
Right. They currently run a daycare facility now, and they're going to expand their daycare facility into taking more of infants. So they're getting new licensing, everything for that. So to build out the new facility, they're requesting the $75,000 grant to help with the build out. They'll also be matching from the congregation. We'll be throwing matching funds in as well. So it's not a straight out grant. It's just a portion of the cost that's going to do it. And we thought with all the new people coming in and the businesses that we're going to be attracting, offering daycare right here in the community would be a good investment of DRI dollars.
Anybody have any comments on this or input on this? Paul, you have comments on everything. But that's good, Paul. They're welcome.
Well, I like the concept. The only thing I would recommend here, if possible, they have their own parking lot there, and that if people are dropping off their infants and then using the train, they provide parking for those people that they use in their facility.
That's not.
Okay. We're gonna just.
I want to answer his question. I'm from Trinity.
Bill, what's your question?
The answer to your question, sir, is that this building here is not providing parking for people to go to the city. If they're parking in the town lots, they can drop their kid off and go to the parking garage.
The church owns their own parking lot, which is always empty.
All right, we're gonna stick with the program and get through this. Actually, Rose?
No, I was just gonna add to that. It might be empty at times, but during the week when we do be dropping kids, my grandchildren go to nursery school and the only childhood center there. And there's times I ride around, and there isn't parking. Because sometimes I think commuters might sneak into those lots. But part of the south lot is, and that's another issue we need to deal with.
Okay. So if there's no more comments on this one, we move to the next one. Jim?
The next one is the Small Business Development Fund. We're requesting $600,000. We had some of the businesses that wanted to come into the downtown, but they didn't have site control. They didn't have a signed lease in any of the buildings, obviously because the new buildings aren't built yet. So we have some interesting people that want to come into the downtown, as well as some of the businesses that are in downtown that can either spruce up their buildings or expand. So we're requesting $600,000 for a Small Business Development Fund. That number came out is because that's the amount that the state will allow us to do a project like this. So this will help spur new businesses and help the existing businesses that are here. So I'll turn it back over to Greg. You have a question?
Yeah. Jim, what is your estimate of the $600,000 bringing in?
It would all depend on which business. That's something that we'd have to see which businesses who we were going to give it to.
We vote on it.
Right. Well, I think the Small Business Development Fund is just funding the fund, and then we're working on the mechanism. It may actually be you voting on the
Small Business Development Fund projects itself. There's different ways that it can be set up, whether it be through an LDC or through the town board. So we're still working out the small intricacies of that, which will be done within the next probably 2 to 3 weeks before we send up the final project. But same thing, this is conceptual, that we want to help the existing businesses and spur the businesses here that got cut out of being able to do it because they didn't have site control.
I want to see small business grow and thrive in this new area.
Absolutely.
My understanding of what you're saying is that we're talking about that if we build it, they will come, right? And that this is more of a guarantee that if we build it, not only will they come, but we'll be able to be in a little more control of who and what benefits the community best on the second level, right, further down the road, and ensuring that the right people that we think are the best opportunity for the town have an opportunity to have access to resources and knowledge and essentially also money so that they can really come in. So that doesn't actually, we just do all this stuff and then nothing actually happens. There's incentive for things to actually take place.
This will allow, like some of the bigger projects you see that are the $3 million, $4 million. The little guy gets left out of that. Although it's going to infrastructure, which is going to benefit him in the end. I mean, if you chose to do Festival Plaza and Station Plaza, you're going to see the restaurants and the businesses that are going to want to open. They're going to want to open right there or nearby. And it's only going to help, and some of the businesses that are here now may want to expand. And this will allow them to update the signage. It's going to make the existing businesses, we can do facade, whatever you guys choose, we can do facade improvements out of this. We just didn't want to leave the small person out and throw all the money into infrastructure or a bigger project like this.
Thanks, Jim. You did say that that's $600,000 is all that the state would allow for this specific portion of the project.
Yes.
Is there any chance down the road we could get additional funding? Because again, it's always challenging for small businesses. As they start coming in, we want to give them some type of incentive so they can be competitive.
Yeah, we'll be looking at all other different kinds of funding. Like I said, this is the seed money that's we're getting started. We'll be working with the Long Island Regional Economic Development Councils. Hicksville will then now become a project of regional significance when we do this, which will allow us to gain some of the bigger grants that they give to a Brookhaven Lab, they gave to a Wyandanch Rising. Once we actually break ground, and going back to Dave Capel's point, once we get the inertia going and showing that we're serious and this is what we're building, it opens up a whole nother layer of funding that we'll be able to receive that we can use for infrastructure and other items. And with that, we can apply to them for small business money as well. It's all about putting Hicksville on the map, and this is why we want to try to get something that's actually going to roll and it will build upon each investment.
I just think very important people, improving the aesthetics is very, very important. And working with the town and having a plan that, that our community looks beautiful, not the kind of hodgepodge mess it is at the moment.
Right, well, we have a lot of small business owners, and Lionel can attest to it, that just say, I want to do that, but I just don't have the money for that now.
Exactly.
But yet, when they see all this coming in, they will definitely, if we can give them, some of it could be $10,000, it could be $3,000 for a new sign, it could be for a new awning, $5,000. And that will make a world of difference to them. And if you do 4 in a row, like everything, like I said, we do it in groups. If you did 4 stores in a row and gave them all $10,000, that whole block for $40,000 looks totally different. That's the incentive behind something like this.
And we would be working then with the town, with the bank, so that we make sure everything looks nice and flows nice. It's not like I pick something, he picks something, they pick something, and the uniformity is very, very important.
We throw around the term design guidelines, which is something that we'd be looking to do. And which new projects that we're having come in, they're sitting down with us and we're trying to give them kind of what we're looking at for some sort of uniformity.
And I think we can see that those who followed this process all the way through, with the concept that HKS has really helped us understand and appreciate as to how this whole downtown area can actually come together and be beautiful and get that continuity. And I know the supervisor's been focused on making sure that we don't have a hodgepodge of different looks all over the place.
And just to that note, I can say I've seen them, I've met with them, there's some people in this room now that are property owners and developers that have held off what they were looking to do because they want to see what the project is going to look at, and they're willing to change. Just today I had someone there changing the design of their whole building to meet kind of what we envision the downtown to be.
Any members of the committee have any other comments on this slide?
Hey, excuse me, 1 second. Jim, I know that Westbury just gave $1 million for a arts program that draw people to the community. I know we're not looking to do anything like that, but to be open year round.
We'll talk about what happened in Glen Cove. It was very successful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all something that the committee can recommend. Westbury had the advantage, they already had the space, they had an organization, they had an arts council. We're a little bit behind that. So I think that's all something that we can do moving forward with other grants. I think if we don't invest, the biggest fear here is if you take $1 million here, $1 million there, 250,000 over here, you're going to squander it. We need to make,
look at Patrick also.
Right.
But you could also, one of the things with that festival plaza, right? If we decided that we had some kind of structure around, I think it was a volunteer committee with the town that was in charge of either pop-ups or craft fairs or artist displays and mini galleries, that there was tenting and heaters, that there could be, there's all different ways you can do it at different times of the year, where there was a program, like whether it was funded or not funded, to bring in those artists, to bring people from Brooklyn and from different places, even up from Baltimore, where it's all happening, and to have a place where it can all be displayed in the community and heard.
And to showcase our own local talent, where you could offer like local high school productions, could possibly do something. I just think there's a lot of artistic opportunity.
It wouldn't have to happen at IKEA. Which it was nice that it happened at IKEA, where they showed off the high school kids' work, but there would be a place where the town could celebrate it instead of Sweden.
And a couple of developers have also mentioned about that community space in the buildings and wanted to know what we're looking for. So they were amenable to that, to providing a community space like that. Currently, we don't have it. All the old theaters and movie theaters have become churches and things of that. So in the new rebuilding, some of the developers have approached us and said, would you like something like that?
We do have talented young people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Seniors, that would be great to do.
All right, and that's a conversation, actually I have to talk to you guys about after the meeting, but there are people that are willing to put community space in, because with the amount of buildings coming in, I mean, not all be retail, we can design something like that.
Or an open space or a common area.
Absolutely.
Parks, you need sculpture. You need cool stuff like that.
Yep, no, that's a great suggestion.
Anybody else on the committee? So with the projects that we've selected so far, we're looking at a cost of almost $19 million. And our task here is to
whittle it down.
We have to whittle it down. So we had a $6 million item on here.
The $6 million item would be West Barclay Street, which would have been money for us investing into the road work, lighting, sidewalks, things like that. What we envision is West Barclay can probably start to develop on its own. If we made the core investment in Festival Plaza, Station Entry Drive, and Station Plaza, I think we can throw the West Barclay more towards the private developers. We've had some discussions with that, as well as with the MTA. They all want to be right next to the parking garages and next to the train station. So that becomes a valuable piece of property that we think that they'll be more than willing to fund. There's ways that they've done it in Wyandanch Village, where there's commuter, residents, and shopping all together, and it works. The shared parking concept there works on certain aspects of it, because a lot of times the people then are either going to the train or they're not. It's never full, and the units are all full. So there is a couple of concepts that we're looking at with that. So West Barclay, we think, can almost develop itself, and what we're looking to do is put the financial responsibility on some of the private development that's going in.
Agreed.
That was the thought process going in, but it's all open for discussion with the committee. That if someone else is willing to do it as a trade-off, we didn't see why we should be financing that. We think West Barclay will develop no matter what happens.
I gotta say, the only one, I know it's like quote unquote as a ton, but the 1.5 for 99 Hicksville Station Plaza, if they got 40 million, I don't know why they need 1.5 from us.
That's all things that the state will invest. If they bring them, they're going to be the first one in. So they are taking the risk of being the first one in.
I tend to agree, Jim, and not that I think that they should get nothing. We should incentivize them, but there's so much money that's going to be made by someone developing and being first in time. That's an incentive. That's not, to me, that's not a detriment. I view things, I think, maybe a little differently than some of the rest of the committee. I feel like that West Barclay Street is the keystone, personally, and with Festival Plaza being a close second. I know how beneficial the Station Plaza and Station Entry Drive, I get it. But I just feel like for the residents, these things they would add more value to their daily lives than the other. Just my take on it.
I see your point.
Yeah.
I actually see both points, and again, you're 100% correct, but again, because Hicksville's gone through so much over the years, and I hate to say it, one back when they were on Broadway, we need something that's going to be the flagship to say, we are serious, Hicksville change. I'm looking at the total dollar amount minus what we said here. It's not impossible for the top floor to come up with $11 million or something, because it's going to move forward. Those private investment dollars will come through. But if these guys are serious and they're asking for 1.5, and they're going to do it, get it done, and it's going to be nice, it's going to be what we want, I'd like to see that.
So our job is to have some consensus over here as to which projects we are going to recommend to the state for this. Our goal is to try and get ourselves close to that $9.7 million. So.
Now, I feel a little, with the station, if we're doing the other work, I think the MTA should come up with the money to improve the Station Plaza.
Yeah. That's the talks that we're having with them as well.
Okay.
Because don't they want to increase that, with that little bit of volume, they should have a little bit more significant, because if nothing happens, they're not doing the garages anyway. I know that, but we make it the way that we want to, we build the other things, I think they'll.
Yeah, I think so.
There are some conversations where we can trade off other things. If we put the bill for 1.3 or 1.5 for Station Plaza, they may give us something else on the other end. They are a willing partner with us, but our biggest fear is if you did Festival Plaza and Entry Drive and not Station Plaza, you lost the continuity. So I think if you show the MTA works exactly almost like the DRI does. They want return on dollars as well. That's why they're interested in working with us and wrapping the parking garages, because they see that that's bringing, that's going to help their ridership. Everything works together. So they're an invested partner with us. But like I said, if we lose that continuity and you throw a parking lot in the middle of it, you pretty much squash the whole plan.
Yeah, but they're putting $2 billion in right now, Jim.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So what's the couple million?
Yeah. Right.
I consider that. I think we got to be really careful. I know the third track project and the MTA process really well. I know. And we're lucky. We're very lucky that we got third track approved when we did, because what's going on that MTA board now is intense competition between the needs of the railroads and the New York City subway system. And so to make any rash assumptions about adding on to the budget that's already been allocated for third track, I think could be a serious issue.
And what we have to look at as well is the MTA promised us 1 to 2 garages. They were going to build them bigger and boxy. We went back to them and asked them to build 4 to 6 smaller ones. So the cost of that has almost probably doubled. So we're looking at almost, they've already kicked in about another $40 million to work with our design, just because they were willing to see what we were doing. So they're $110 million garages. It's probably close to 150 to 160 million now. So we are pushing them, but pushing them to get what we want.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I'd like to just get a clearer understanding of the West Barclay Street money and why it's such a large sum. I don't know if Eric or Cecil, one of you can explain to us how you arrived at that number, and could we split it in half and start like half of that project in a phase and allow the rest to be privatized?
Certainly. West Barclay right now is basically just a access passageway to the parking lots. Sidewalks are minimal. There's not the right level of, say, infrastructure for lights. Nothing really supports pedestrian pathways. So you're creating something new here. And what we were conceiving is that there be distinctive paving on the sidewalks. Number one, the sidewalks would be wide enough. That there be street print on the crosswalks to really highlight the ways that people would cross those roadways. New York State DOT has a program which is called Complete Street, which is really focused on making the passageways safer for pedestrians. And they've got a series of elements, street print being one of them, that they do allow on these particular streets. One of the other things that goes into the cost that we had budgeted here is a family of street furniture. Talking about bollards, light standards, trash receptacles, that would give this particular place a specific identity distinctive from other districts. Now, you don't have to go and design it custom. You could start pulling things off the shelf. But this is where we started. So in terms of the range of monies that would be allocated to any particular element here, we could certainly look at it and try to decrease it and certainly figure out if they could come from other buckets of monies.
Well, that's really my question. Is when we look at West Barclay, right, we're talking about lining it with some residential, some mixed use, right?
Yes.
So why couldn't? Can we go back to the West Barclay slide, Greg? So my question is, I bet you there are developers sitting here in this room that if we said to them, we'll give you your permits, but we're expecting you to put into a fund that's going to fund the streetscape. I hope some of you are listening, because I know you're sitting there.
That's why we recommend you take West Barclay off.
I feel like if we put some seed money, that's why I'm saying, do we have to make that a $6 million project? Can't we make the planning of it a $500,000 project, so that at least we still have it on the table?
That's a very good point, and I guess I believe that seeding it with some funds is an appropriate move here, because as what we've been seeing in the project overall is once the private sector understands that there's a commitment by the town to make something happen, they will start to actually step up. Here, I do believe, just a little bit counter to what you were suggesting, that you can't do West Barclay in isolation of Station Plaza and Entry Drive. I think they do come in tandem.
But that's why I'm saying, if we did, let's say we took Station Plaza, Entry Drive, and Festival Plaza as our projects, but we put $500,000 into a fund to make sure this still goes. That's for planning for this. At least that way it still stays sort of on the table. I feel like if we take it off the table, it's going to just disappear.
We control the south side of Barclay Street, because that's actually our parking lots. So we've already spoken with some developers that there is interest, and we would have them foot the bill for the
What
whole
is the
development.
sales cost of $684,000?
It's the design of those particular elements.
Put that money in, that's the seed money that council is thinking of.
Could be.
So just interject that from the state's perspective, a project that's just planning really isn't eligible for DRI funding. We're really looking for things that are going to happen. So the concern about that is we don't want to do plans for things that then don't happen, so the money just kind of disappears in plans. So we rotate funding design and attach to a capital improvement. So if there's another way to shape or reduce the budget so if something happens, we can do that.
Do we have time for one more developer to come forward and agree to champion this cause if someone were to call in the next week?
I'm not worried about, I don't really worry about West Barclay Street.
Okay.
Yeah, we can talk later.
Okay.
Yes, I would support going with, everyone except the West Barclay Street. Aren't the parking garages at the MTA going to build along West Barclay? Would they be doing certain improvements to sidewalks and the streets, whatever?
More so on the access routes, not so much on the redevelopment of West Barclay.
So if they're going to help out on the access routes, that
They're-
would
they're
reduce
like-
the cost for those.
like I said,
so we can use some of that money towards funding, like camp.
We hit them up, or we hit them up for the dividing the garages from 2 to possibly 4 to 6.
I know.
Yep.
Well, I would support it. We have to get it down to 12 million on West Barclay Street right now.
Yeah, I would agree, West Barclay to phase 2 for all the reasons stated. I like all the projects. I have a timing concern, particularly on Festival Plaza. Because I have heard input from some that are concerned about commuter parking losses while we're waiting for the garage. So several of these projects would lose
The thought
some
would be
community
Festival
parking.
Plaza would come in after the garage is built.
Okay, oh, I see, completion 2020. Well, it says 2020 here, the garages say 2023, if I recall correctly.
We're working, we're gonna maximize the parking to avoid any loss of parking.
Where I was going with this, I was gonna
Right, you
shift.
didn't want to shift everything and then not have any parking.
Right, exactly, that's a concern from commuters.
That's our number one concern.
So I was gonna use that to segue into the other areas along the lines of what Rebecca said about possibly using this in other areas. We didn't mention the Broadway Complete Street. That might be something we want to consider in that $12 to $15 million range. That's on the page 9 of our handout.
And Phil, also, we've spoken with the design team, and they can speak to that fact too. If we restripe the existing lots while we're working on it, we can gain back the spacing, the lost spacing that if we decide to build Festival Plaza in the interim, we can make it up just by redesign the parking lot.
Can I say one more thing? My thoughts is that these other projects that to be included, not recommended for funding, but included in the overall plans, and especially these complete street projects that are all DOT's responsibility. Pressure should be put on them to fix Newbridge and fix Broadway. They destroyed those two streets. Now they should come up with the money to do a project.
We met with DOT a couple of weeks ago. Some members of the design team and Dave Capella and the town representatives went out and met with them. They were receptive. They've told some of the projects that they already had in the hopper. There's going to be some traffic lights and crosswalk improvements. But we went back to them, and that's why we took some of the other ones. You can see in the original plan, there was, I think, 107 and Newbridge Crossing. We took those out of the plans after conversations with the DOT, knowing that we're going to be shifting and asking them for some of the responsibility. Like we said, some of the original, we were at 23, 25 million to start. We got down to 15, which is a big step. Oh, we took out some of those, and we did reach out to the DOT. Yeah, we pretty much hammered everybody we can to make up the funding, any shortfall. But as you said, we are recommending they're all staying in the plan because, like I said, if something does fall off, we can move to the other one. And we want to have it in the plan, so if we were to go out for grant funding for other agencies later, it's already in our plan. So we're not taking anything out of the plan, but yet we're recommending these. We're prioritizing, for lack of a better word, these ones to move forward.
Paul, look on page 9.
Lionel?
I gotta ask this anyway. As we talk to some of the private entities that are looking for investment, is the investment contingent on them doing the project? If we reduce it or eliminate it, do we still have to feel that they're still gonna do it anyway, but they're just looking for that incentive?
The numbers that we based on with the financing and the number of units that we're doing included the $1.5 million.
Okay, okay.
For the 40 million project, the financing, everything is 38 and change, and so it was included in 1.5. Okay. But the committee can choose to make it 500,000, 1.5. You can give them 2 million. That's up to you guys. But like I said, based on the total amount of return on investment, the numbers seem to be good. If you compare it to some of the other DRI projects throughout the state, that's a big number.
Does anybody else on the panel have any other comments before we open up for the public?
I just want to compliment HKS again. I think it's just been an outstanding job. It's been a real pleasure to work with you, and thank you very much, and thank you to the state for the opportunity.
So what I'd like to do is just have a brief public comment period. I'd like to open the floor up, but I'd like to select people from Hicksville first. So if anybody from Hicksville, well, Joe, before I get to you, I have this young lady in the back underneath the clock.
Yeah, I'm concerned about the traffic.
If you want to, why don't you come up front? I'll give you the microphone.
Here for this one. People are moving it around the side.
I'm concerned about the traffic on Broadway. Why can't that road be widened? Why not? Woodbury Road was once widened. Where do you live? The traffic on Broadway is impossible.
You want the LA Express?
Okay. Make a note of that question. Yes.
Nothing's impossible.
Hi, I'm a Hicksville resident and I'm also a commuter, and I'm still not hearing from anybody. Has there been a traffic study or a traffic/parking study planned,
Yes.
or is there one in progress?
The traffic study has already been in place. Nassau County is taking care of that for us. It's undergoing as we speak.
Especially
when will that
Probably
study be made
within a
public?
month.
Well, then I'm
And it will encompass the Broadway Mall and the proposed Seritage development.
okay. So even though that's not specifically part of the DRI, they will be considering that in
We
town.
have to consider it because
Yes.
they may not build any, but it would be foolhardy for us to not think and plan that in there. So we are planning that.
Okay, and then my other question is though, if that's gonna happen in the next 3 or 4 months, this plan sounds like it has to happen by March 30th? Going from high-level conceptual, what we're talking about today, to submitting everything concrete, but this traffic study's not going to be done until after that.
This is funding for projects that may not be done
Okay.
for another year and a half.
So what is
So
the
we do-
traffic study being done on? Is it being done on the conceptual plan?
Not on,
Or-
no, the traffic study has nothing to do with we put money on Festival Plaza or Station Plaza.
Okay.
It's based on the number of units in the town throughout the past 7 years has agreed with an initial housing of between 500 to 800 units in the downtown. It's based on that. So
That's
they're gonna-
separate
they're
from
gonna take that number-
Seritage.
Separate from Seritage, the downtown itself, the DRI itself.
Right.
And they come up with that number. So it's
Okay.
based on those number of units. Whether I put it right on Nelson or right on Walker will make a small difference, but not a
Okay.
tremendous difference in the number of units. It would be, that would all be involved with, actual street design, but that's further down the road. They have the number of units that we're putting in, so
Okay.
whether it be,
Which won't change.
that number is set right now.
Okay.
So
Right.
the number of units is what they're basing it on.
Okay.
I can't tell you exactly, we know that the Nelson one will start between 150 to 200.
Right.
I see it split, a lot of them more towards the south end, there's more land, and they have 400 units there, and 400 in the Barclay side. So they'll count the total number of units.
Okay, I'm just concerned because you're talking about parking garages wrapped with retail, so you're talking about the retail people have to park there and, have the ingress and egress points because you've got stuff going on now, John Street and Kill Avenue, you've got a lot of big projects coming in, and it kind of all is tied together in the same area.
That's all, they'll take that into consideration.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. Go with it. Do that.
Hey everybody, my name is Joel Burr. Some of you know me, some of you don't. I'm the immediate past president of Northwest Civic Association of Hicksville, immediate past president of the Community Council here, a former commercial liaison for Hicksville Gardens, a member of the Chamber of Commerce from 1984 to 2010, a business owner still to this day, and a resident that lives within 100 yards of the train station. Now, from what's been talked about here today in this audience, I noticed that the audience, unfortunately, is a lot smaller, and I'm wondering from some of the things that I've heard from people in the community lately, if some of the interest is waning, and if the distrust problems that we had before with planning things is coming up again. It's a concern. I don't know if it's just the way people are perceiving or the things that are going on in the social media, but we need people to get the actual facts of what's going on so that rumor mongers don't start and that their concerns can be set aside. I have heard that a lot of people look at the makeup of this committee and see too many of the people involved are not really stakeholders in Hicksville. They're people from the outside, and it concerns Hicksville people. Also, this project seems to have been relocated from what the Revitalization Committee has been working on for years into what they determined as the downtown being more along Broadway and being relocated to the train station as the main focus. That is a concern of a lot of the people that are residents. And at a recent meeting of community leaders, there was a project brought up that was said, maybe we should bring it to here tonight. Remember whenever we had the holidays and the American flags were lining Broadway? Okay, well, that's impossible anymore to be done because the parking meters that supported the flagpole holders are mostly gone, or the other ones have been damaged, and it was brought up that maybe we could get out of this DRI money to have that infrastructure for the flags to be reinstalled, which would not be a very heavy cost, and all the organizations that used to participate and volunteer and take turns putting the flags up for the various holidays would love to come back and do it again. So that was a very decorative thing for when we had parades, when we had national holidays, and right now the only place that consistently can be done is surrounding Kennedy Park because it's the only place where all the flag holders are in place. I'm not the expert on this one. If Charlie Montana is here, I'd love to hear him put in his 2 cents on it because he was the originator of bringing this up in that meeting. And I wanted to make sure that in case he's not here, I haven't seen everybody tonight, that it be brought up. And the final thing is, and I know they keep saying the county is doing a traffic study, but if the county's doing the traffic study, the problem is every time they're bringing up a project, a proposed idea, that they're not ready to make a mention from the committee of what the traffic ramifications are. These garages, the one way into the train station rather than the multiple ways into the train station. What happens when Long Island Railroad service is interrupted and they close down half the station for the buses? You know, those things are real, genuine concerns that are not going to go away no matter how pretty they make something. So these are things that I have as observations that I know are concerns of some of the people, and I just wanted to bring them to the light. So I thank you for indulging me.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, gentleman, right over here. You want to?
I probably have a little different perspective than the emphasis we have today. I bought some property pretty close to here, close to $10 million, and I'm still struggling. When I bought it, I thought this is downtown Long Island because of the train station, LIE, Northern State, everything is here. 106, 107, everything is here. And then nothing happened. There was a vision statement came in 2005. Based on that, I bought the property, thinking this area will improve. It did. Then a year ago, I go to Farmingdale train station. Where is Farmingdale train station and where is Hicksville? There's no comparison. But you go there. I don't know how many of you have gone to Farmingdale train station area, how beautiful it is, how many housing was done there, and what do we have here? There's no talk about housing. You have to attract people from Manhattan, upscale youth, millennials, to come and stay here. There's no emphasis for that. Building parking lot for people is not revitalizing in my mind. You got to attract young people, which means good housing, mixed use, entertainment. Young people will stay here. That emphasis is not being I don't see it. Farmingdale, not here.
Well, I think that's exactly what's going on here. A lot of these projects are designed here to create housing in the downtown Hicksville area. And you are correct, in Farmingdale, a lot of things have happened there, and I can speak for that because I live in Farmingdale. I've seen that happen there. But the project didn't happen overnight. It took 10 years from the time we talked about creating a visioning process to actually seeing it come to fruition. And we didn't have the benefit of what we're working with here, and that's the grant money the state's giving us in order to create seed projects and to get this thing underway. So I do believe that we are going to see an opportunity here for people who have invested in the community to see an opportunity to develop your own properties, or to see larger development coming in here, to see some of these visions and these concepts that have been created by HKS come to life. Any other comments, sir?
My problem also is that the access to and out of the train station, currently everybody is being funneled into the station where you do the purchasing of the ticket, but there is no way to get out of it because even if you go to the FedEx office area, there is no U-turn allowed. If you go to Duffy Avenue, there is no U-turn allowed. If you go north, there's Wyckoff Street. They made it one way when it used to be two-way. So now you got to go all the way behind the storage building, either into the parking lot or the street across, which means that you're making people go around and around, which is congestion and not an easy access. So what are you doing about that in this area?
So we're going to take all of your comments and questions into consideration as we kind of wrap this meeting up here at this point. We'll take two more. Young lady up here. I'm sorry. I didn't know we had a line, but I called on her first, so. All right. Ladies first.
I love the idea of the plan. I believe the train station is key to revitalizing Hicksville. But I'm a little concerned in that the overemphasis on the Hicksville station and the overload in parking. And my vision is to kind of spread it out among the other towns like Farmingdale and Syosset, that some more parking should be developed out there so that Hicksville isn't overbuilt with parking.
Sir?
I'm a Hicksville resident. I think there was a lot of good ideas out here tonight. I just want to ask the committee to think very strategically and carefully at the projects that are going to spur the most investment. This is the first stage. It's only $10 million. We're not going to solve every problem right now, but plazas, nice access to the train station, that's what's going to spur investment. We can get developers to invest on complete streets in Berkeley when they're developing their private buildings, but no one's going to develop these private plazas. So think very strategically and carefully when making our choices. It's just the first step. There'll be a lot to come down the line. So thank you.
Thank you.
The line's getting longer.
I am a Hicksville resident, and I am a member of the Revitalization Committee, the Downtown Revitalization Committee, which we have been working on this for many years, and so this is, music to my ears to see what HKS has come up with, ideas that I never would have even thought of. We used to, as a committee, try to figure out where would the downtown be, and Broadway was so busy, and how can we, calm the traffic, and now we're thinking of something totally different. Nelson and West Barkley, right? That is something I never would have thought of. So here we have all these great ideas that we can work on and hopefully see to fruition. Thank you.
Thank you. That's fun.
Hi, my name is George Sahadachny. I'm a lifelong resident of Hicksville. All these proposals, they sound wonderful. You know, it's like, to me, it's a great wish. I don't, maybe I'm just too negative. My biggest problem is that you're gonna create more traffic than we already have, and what is going to happen with the traffic that already exists? I haven't, and no one has explained to me what they're going to do. 107, 106, Newbridge, Jerusalem, Broadway,
and Duffy,
West John, Duffy. I mean, we are congested already, and I understand. Yeah, we're going to have walkways, and we're going to make Kennedy Park bigger. Where is the traffic going? That's real. I mean, I would love for this to happen. Are you going to divert Broadway around somewhere else? Are you going to divert Newbridge Road? Is it going to go somewhere else? We've been down this road. When growing up here, I remember what Hicksville was like. Oh, and the examples where you give like Farmingdale, and you give Westbury, and Padjock, how beautiful they are. Well, they didn't have a town destroyed. They didn't have the state come in and just level parts of Hicksville. And so now you are left with the remnants of destruction. And it's been built piecemeal, this, that. Okay, my biggest question is, what are they going to do with the existing traffic today that is going down all the main roads in Hicksville? And you should really include Old Country Road too, because it's going to affect
And
everything.
Woodbury Road.
Thank you. Woodbury Road. There's a...
It's
Thank you very much.
You can't cross the street.
Thank you. We have some closing comments here from our town supervisor, Joe Saladino.
Thank you. I'd like to start off by thanking everyone for their participation today and your professionalism and the way you've been coming to these meetings and listening and now providing comments. The committee's been working very hard. I'd like to thank all of you for your efforts and your passion about making sure that this is done right, and a tremendous opportunity. Our elected officials who have been working on this for so long, including Rose Walker, Legislator Rose Walker, Councilwoman Rebecca Alessia, Councilman Tony McEnone. I saw Legislator Drucker here earlier. And this is important. This is a great opportunity. And it's a great opportunity to solve as many of these problems as possible, including the problem of traffic. Obviously, part of the design and this great opportunity working with some of the best planners, and we looked into them carefully. These are people who have been doing planning work not only throughout the United States, but throughout the world. And we have a wonderful opportunity where the property taxpayers don't have to pay for this. That's one thing and that's something we're going to continue to do, to try to make sure we get our fair share from the state. It's a gift. It's a great opportunity. And to try to make sure that we get, when I say our fair share, that money's up in Albany. I spent 14 years up there. If we don't get it, it's going to somebody else. So those who have been planning and working on this for so many years, to win this opportunity, to win this grant, starts a process. It's not a one and done. So your input is very much appreciated. And I do want to let you know, sometimes you don't hear something at the 1 or the 3 or the 10 meetings that you attend. But I do want to let you know that these issues, including traffic, is what we're dealing with each and every day as we go back to the office to do our homework. So they are being recognized. We recognize how important each and every one of these issues is. Sometimes we walk away with, well, it's going to be Barclay, or it's going to be this, or it's going to be that, and that's it. But that's not really what this process is. And those who have worked in their own villages and communities, this process has been going on throughout the state for how many years? For 2 years now. And we have seen benefits to jumpstart in communities. So I do want to assure you that the questions that you're asking, we're dealing with each and every day, whether or not you hear it at the particular meeting that you're attending. So as we go forward, there will be many stages. Your input is highly needed, greatly appreciated, and we are listening to the community. There is a lot of representation of Hicksville on this community, with including those members who have been on the committee for now 10 years working on this. Rose Walker, working on Hicksville issues for 30 years? Quite a bit more. That's a drop in the bucket. And those of us who represent you each and every day, whether we live in Hicksville or not. I represent you, Rebecca represents, Councilwoman Alessia, Councilman McEnone, Rose Walker. We represent your needs, what you want to see done, and it's going to happen in a number of stages. So the priorities of traffic are paramount. The priorities of making sure that there really is a difference, something that looks, feels, and functions differently for young people, seniors, empty nesters now. And this is a process that will provide something for everyone. And we do appreciate your patience and the fact that you have been waiting a long time. And you've had disappointments when you've been told this is going to happen, that's going to happen, and it didn't happen. Well, now we have a state mandate to make sure it happens, and the seed money to get the engine started, to get that going. So I thank you for your contributions to this. I thank you for your input. The committee's been working very hard on this, and we will get something accomplished that addresses all of those issues, as well as greatly changes the look and the feel without destroying what has always made Hicksville special. Thank you for your participation.
Thank you, Supervisor. Next meeting is when? There it is, February 26th, 7 o'clock. The opportunity for the public to, again, participate with public comment. Thank you very much all for coming here tonight. Look forward to seeing you at the next meeting.